Hey guys, in this video, we're going to take a look at creating separation and clarity within your mixes. So I'm going to show you how we take a mix from sounding like this to something that sounds like this. Obviously, one of the things that set a good mix apart from the rest is great definition and clarity between your sounds. So things aren't cluttered, masked, or muddy. It's really only a couple of steps to this. We have volume, panning, EQ, compression, and spatial effects. And by spatial effects, I'm not talking about stereo widening or anything like that. I just mean standard stuff like reverb and delay. And of course, you have all the other fancy techniques like parallel compression, sidechain compression, using saturation, stereo widening, exciters. All those things can also help make your mix sound really good. They're not really necessary to get good separation within a mix. So to try and demonstrate this for you guys, what I'm gonna do is do a really quick mix on some raw tracks that I just exported from a song that I mixed a few years back. And we're just gonna take this from the ground up and try and get some nice separation and get a rough mix going, just so you can watch the process in how I go about achieving separation. So I've exported these tracks, they're completely raw, unmixed, and now let's just have a quick listen to what we're working with here. So it's a bit of a mess at the moment, but you can hear the potential there for a nice big pop rock song. So let's set the faders to 0 and then build our way up. So for me, if I'm working on a song like this, the mix starts with the drums. I always start with drums and then I work my way through. So I'm not gonna talk too much. I'm just gonna do things. I'm gonna just say things as I go, but we're gonna keep this quick and snappy. Bring this kick up. Kick it out a bit lower. Something weird in that snare. It's like a two-tone thing happening. Like two frequencies next to each other. It's a bit better. I'll just leave it like that for now. Get that snare bottom in there. Find a spot with some toms. I'm gonna pan these left and right, drummer's perspective, crank them up. Hats mic. Have that down a bit. These cymbals are pretty dark. The overheads are already hard left and right panned and then some to a stereo file. So I played these drums on this track and at the time I was using quite dark cymbals. You can hear they're very mellow. Room mics. Okay, already the kit's sounding okay. We've kind of got it spaced out, a bit of panning on the toms and the close mics with the hats and the ride, giving us a nice little bit of separation with the kit. As soon as I start to hear the kick get a bit lost, bring this back a bit. Feeling kind of around there for now. Bring in some electric guitars. 2 electrics, double tracked. And we're just gonna hard pan that width. Bass down a touch still. Overheads up a little, losing the cymbals a bit. Okay, we've got an octave and octave 2s, and they're both playing over here at this time, so let's listen to these. Pan them out. Just going hard left and right. So we're going for like a left, center, right kind of mix. So not too much sort of like panning in between. We're just going hard left, hard right, center, just for like that really big full soundstage mix. I think I just want to hear these. And it's worth noting that I have already set the tracks up in groups, so all the drums are going to a bus, basses to a bus, or like the rhythmic guitars are to a bus, lead guitars to a bus, etc., etc. Everything is being summed to groups, and we kind of have like our little subgroup mixes that we can blend together. And then everything is going to our mix bus, which is then being sent out to what you guys are hearing. So I've just got basic compression on the mix bus. And then just a limiter just to boost a little bit of volume so you guys can enjoy the listening experience, but nothing exciting happening on the mix bus. Okay, I'm liking where those octaves are sitting. Let's bring up these chugs. So this is sort of like an extra layer in the bridge to accent with the double kicks. Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah. We've got a little feedback guitar coming up. Yeah. All right, and then we've got a lead guitar part. Lead 1, lead 2. These are double tracked. Let's pan them out. Going to bring the rhythms down a little bit. Yeah, that's cool. Alright, then we've got some synth bass here. Now we don't want this to be too obvious. This has already got a stereo whip thing going on it, so we don't need to pan this at all. I just want this to blend with the guitars. Somewhere around there. And then we have a organ layer, so we've got a high organ and a low organ. Basically with this is just a filler layer. I'm just going to bring it up till I can just hear it, and then I'm going to stop. I think around there. You don't want to hear that too much. It'll just like mud the mix up. But once your ears can just start to pick it up, that's either a good spot to turn it back down like a dB or two, or just stop and just listen. Let's get some vocals in here. So these vocals need some dynamic control, some compression. They're just not really sitting in this nicely at the moment. Everything else seems to work okay so far, but the vocals are just, they need to just be squished. So let's chuck something on here to get them under control. So let's just use JST gain reduction and just crush these. So this is a pretty interesting plugin. You can absolutely destroy vocals, compress the crap out of them, and then what I like to do is use the mix knob to really dial this in, because I generally don't like the sound of this at 100%. Usually I only go around like 20 to 50%. In between here is like the sweet spot.
Before you say it's built for you, but I find myself so different looking at.
Pretty good.
You create the suffering and pain.
Just gonna copy this across all the vocals. Get a double track in here. Got a harmony. kind of a low soft harmony. It's not really very exciting, so it's going to need something to make it stand out, but just kind of getting it in there, just down the center of the mix. I think that sounds all right. All right, cool. And then we've got some backing vocals up here. I'm gonna go for like a bit off center with this. Bit of dual vocal thing happening. I'm gonna pan these backing vocals left and right a bit. So it's a bit of a clutter of vocals, but that's kind of the idea. It was meant to get kind of like full on. So we can only do so much with separation as far as levels and volume go for now. You could obviously EQ these a bit differently or put an effect on certain ones to make them stand out a bit differently from the rest. But at the moment, I think this sounds pretty cool. One to the left, one to the right, main vocal down the center. All right, that's pretty cool. And then we've just got a bass drop. Let's get this in here. Bass drops shouldn't be super loud. So if you can't really hear that, just put on some headphones that have bass in it and you'll be able to hear it. Okay, so far we've gotten some nice separation just through levels and panning. So let's take it back to what we had before. So we've created a sense of space. We've got the things up front that we want to hear up front, and the things that are meant to be tucked back are now tucked back. There's just a nice separation between the instruments, but there's still a bit of clutter going on. So that's our next step. We need to demask, declutter this mix, and start bringing things forward or putting them back or making space for other sounds so that we have the clarity that we want. So I'm just going to start EQing things and just, come along for the ride and just see how this takes shape. So I'm going to start at the kick and then I'm just going to work my way through. And I'm just going to use stock EQs and compressors just because I know you guys want to see me work with more stock stuff. So here we go. Main one we're using is the Vintage Tube EQ in the Vintage EQ collection. Just adding some clarity to that kick. Now we're on the kick out. Basically just trying to get some sub out of this. Yeah, just a bit of thump. I want the snare to cut through this mix, so we need to crank some top end on this. Let's get Black Salt audio on here. So if you guys haven't checked this plugin out, I did a review on it the other day, and it's just a really great plugin for getting rid of cymbal bleed and just gating your drums in general. So let's get this on here. All right, moving on from that for now. You can spend forever on a snare drum. Getting some sizzle into that snare bottom. So these toms need to be brightened up a little bit. There's a nice little bit of low end there. Yeah, I dig that. Sounds pretty sick. Let's chuck silencer before this as well on the tom mode. See if we can get rid of that little bit of cymbal bleed on the end. Yeah, boost some top end. Yeah. We're getting some more separation in the drums now. We're letting them have some clarity. Boosting a little bit of top end into them just helps them cut through the mix a bit better. I really want to hear some more top end in these cymbals. Sounds way better. Take out some of this muddy mid-range in the overheads. Get some beefiness in this room mics. Roll a little bit of that high end off. A little bit of EQ on the drum bus. A little bit of silky top end. Touch of mids. Touch of mud cut out. A tiny little boost in the low end. Let's see how our drums are sounding. It's an improvement. They're cutting through the mix. Get some fatness in this bass DI. Boosting some 60 hertz. A little bit of mid-range. Cut some honk. Around 300. Digging that. Our distorted guitars. So you see when we cut this mid-range around 700-800 hertz, the vocals come forward. Have a listen to that. So I reckon a little bit of that is demasking our vocals. A little bit of brightness to the top end, 8K boost. Tiny boost around 100. Maybe at 60, just so it's a bit lower. A bit more exciting now. Tiny boost at 1.5. Just going to leave that. So that's just on our guitar bus. So we just cleared up some space in the vocals by cutting a little bit of mid-range out of the guitar. Just want to bring that out a little bit more.
Looking at the things you do, and though I used to be just like you,
A little bit of a cut in the mids again, just to declutter for the vocals. Bit of demasking.
these taking in the world before you. You say it's built
Yeah, around 400.
for you, but I found myself so different. Looking at the beach,
Just do a high pass.
I am Christian walls, you see, yeah. Found myself so different. Looking at the things
A little bit more around here.
you do, and though I used to be just like you, I am Christian.
Just gonna make the low end in this feel a bit deeper by cutting a little bit of 300 hertz here. So just gonna make that synth feel a bit fatter.
Free it from the chains you keep. You wouldn't have it any other way. You wouldn't have it any other way. You
Kind of liking a little bit of that 600-700 hertz in here. See how we're traveling so far. So you can hear all those little EQ moves on top of our levels and our panning. Things are starting to open up now. I think the vocals need some air in them.
Believing lies doesn't make them real. You create the suffering and pain. You realize when it's far too late. Put yourself in what you do. Could you feel the way they do? Stand back and just let it be. It's okay if it's not hurting me. Could you look them in the face, knowing that it's only for a taste? Say that you were not to blame. You're the one hurting the blame. Turn off your lights to make a change. Don't let a minute go to waste. It's only life in this exchange. Let 'em see the smile.
So that little bit of air, cutting a little bit of low mids out, it's helping this vocal poke over the mix a bit better. Let's just copy paste that across our vocals for now. And we're gonna need a little bit of de-essing on there since we've just boosted that top end up a bit. Something like this.
I can open up the truth you need, yeah. I can free you from the chains you keep. You would
Check out this bit with all the vocals going.
stand back and just let it be. It's okay if it's not hurting me.
Definitely gonna need an EQ before everything with a high pass filter. So I probably should have done that first.
Mind of what you feel. Believing lies doesn't make them real. You create the suffering and pain. You realize when it's far too late. Put yourself in what you do. Could you feel the way they do? Stand back and just let it be. It's okay if it's not
Just some kind of annoying frequencies in there. See these chugs.
hurting me. Could you
Yeah, just a bit louder. Alright, I think we're getting somewhere. Now, I feel like this could all just use a little bit of reverb. So I'm just going to do like a reverb for the full mix. I don't normally do this kind of thing, but I think it's going to work. Just to kind of create a sense of space across everything without spending heaps of time on reverbs. And I'm just going to use Relab. LX480 is essential. Such a good reverb, so simple. And we're just going to use the medium plate.
I can open up the truth you need, yeah. I can free you from the chains you keep. You wouldn't have it any other way. You wouldn't have it any other way. You close your
So I haven't put the bass into the reverb, but I put everything else in, and the drums are just getting a touch extra.
mind and what you feel. Believing lies doesn't make them real. You create
Still not loving that snare. I think we just need to pull some low mids out of it.
the suffering and pain. You realize when it's far too late. Put yourself in what you do. Could you feel
Something like
the
that.
way they do? Stand back and just let it be. It's okay if it's not hurting me. Could you look them in the face, knowing that it's only
Gotten rid of a bit of that yucky low mids that was boxing up the snare a bit.
taste. Say that you
Okay, and then just maybe some parallel compression on the drum. So rather than doing individual compressions across the drum kit, I'm just gonna do a parallel compression that I blend in. Let's just see how this sounds. So I've just made a send. Now I'm dropping it into the drum bus because I want this to be fed to the drum bus. And let's just use a stock compressor. Alright, it's making the drums sound pretty cool. We might just chuck a compressor on the drums as well, just to get the drums just really sitting constant so that the cymbals are present, everything is exciting, and that's just going to help the drums kind of sit and be really clear in the mix. So I want maybe a limiter on the drums as well. Couple of dBs of gain reduction. Faster release time. Less look ahead. Pull this back a bit. Drums are obviously very loud at the moment. Might even just bring them down a bit. Turn everything up and such. Gonna make these backing vocals thinner. It's better. It's starting to sound cool, and you can hear things are getting clear now. So basically, like, separation is mixing. Like, there's not really like you just do this and this and it's clear and separated. You have to use your ears, figure out what sounds need to be clearer, what needs to be cut to make room for another sound, what instruments are masking other instruments, and then decide what you need to do with your EQ as far as cleaning them up to make room for everything else. And so our panning definitely helps by pushing things out to the side, making room down the center for vocals, guitars are nice and wide, we've got our cymbals spread out, toms are moving around from left to right, and then we've got like our punchy kicks and snares, vocals down the center. It definitely helps having that stuff, but you still have to have an ear for finding those EQ moves that are really going to clean everything up. Once we got it to a nice kind of point, once we added that little bit of reverb to the mix, now there's a sense of depth and space as well. So it's not just clarity and definition, but now we're in a 3D dimension now because we've added depth to it. We'll probably get silencer on the kick as well. Cool. We don't even have any drum samples in there. It's starting to sound pretty cool. So we could then really beef our drums up with a sample. So we can grab a Spinlight Studio snare and use a Black Beauty. Even a kick just to like add some more punch. I love the acrylic kick.
If you can look at who you are, find the words
All right, let's have a listen to kind of where we are now. I know this is just like a rough mix because I could just sit here and mix for hours until I have it how I want it. But this is just to demonstrate the separation and how we achieve that. And I think we're kind of there, like we're on the very right track now. Not bad. And that's just a pretty rough mix. I'm moving pretty quick here just so that I can try and demonstrate this without taking forever in a video. I'm pretty stoked with how that's sounding so far. And that is basically just running those steps, getting your levels, doing some panning, and then diving into EQ, so cleaning up masking, adding compression as necessary to deal with the dynamics. If you're working on a sound that's jumping in and out of the mix, you need to level that out so you can get control over it. And then adding some spatial effects, so like reverb or delay, to add depth to the mix, and you'll find that things start to separate out really nicely. And so there's things to look for in like electric guitars, like in the mid-range, that are gonna mask the vocals. Things like in the bass, like the mid-range kind of cluttering up in the guitars and the vocals as well. So if it's sounding a bit honky and cluttering the mix and cutting that, it's going to make your bass feel a bit deeper. And if you're finding there's problems between the kick and the bass, then maybe cutting some low frequencies as well. But I was finding this was sitting pretty nice with the levels we had set. And then also the kick had the nice clicky top end, which helped with the separation away from the bass guitar as well. So we've got that thumpy low end, but the clicky top end is helping that kick be defined. And you could hear the dark cymbals in the mix. So by boosting up that airy top end, we took the cymbals away from that upper mid-range where the guitars are kind of sitting in that bright presency region. And we started to focus the cymbals in the airy region, which makes the mix sound nicer, more open, and declutters that upper mid-range. So the EQ on the snare and the toms and the overhead, so we got rid of some mid-range and boosted some highs, and we made more room for the mid-range sounds like the guitars and the vocals, so they got more space. And the synth, there's just more room in the mix because we carved a bunch of junk out of the drums. So drums generally have a lot of mid-rangey dirt that can sort of clutter up a mix, so you have to define your drums and sculpt them. And the mix really starts to open up once you clean up your drum tracks. I'm sure you heard that as we started going. And if you got lots of vocals and backing vocals, things can start to get a bit cluttered, and sometimes cutting some of the low mids out of them. So if you listen to them, you might be like, these sound a little bit thin, but in the mix, and once they blend with your lead vocal, they actually sound fine. So it's a big thing of not concentrating too much on what the sounds sound like in solo, what they sound like on their own, because they're generally not going to sound as good as they would if you just sat there and mixed the sound by itself until it sounded really good. The idea is that it's like a puzzle. Once you join all the pieces together, then it starts to make sense. If you kind of just concentrate on one sound and then concentrate on one sound and then put them together, they might not necessarily work very well. So you need to hear it all in the context of the mix. Like you can see, I was sitting there and I was listening to everything and making changes. I would still jump into solo to find things and listen to things. Like when people say never solo stuff, please ignore them. There is a solo button for a reason. You do need to solo sounds and listen to them at times, but make sure you spend enough time in the context of the full mix to understand what you're doing and how it is affecting everything else. So I hope you guys found this useful. Hope you enjoyed the little mix that I just did then, and hopefully it demonstrated a good way of creating some separation between your sounds. So make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please drop a comment below, let me know what you thought of the video. Please use the link in the description below where you can go to my website and check out my drum samples. And by buying a drum sample pack, you really help support the time that goes in to making all this content. And if you haven't yet got a copy of Black Salt Audio's plugin Silencer, make sure you use my link in the description below, as that also helps support the channel. And if you want to watch the full demo I put together on how Silencer works, make sure you click on that link above and check out that next video coming up.